There you are. How you doing?
Good.
Okay, so Paul Vanderklay is watching.
Good morning, Paul.
Early morning doggy cam and chat. Jacob, you should know my meeting in Chino is at 3 p.m. You can talk to Van Dong to see if he'll let you in on the schedule between the meeting and the meetup. So I am actually going to be at the church at around 3 to have my discussion with Raj at 3:30. So I don't know what you guys are going to be up to, but depends on how long my discussion with Raj is going to be, because I wouldn't be able to. Um, I would not be able to. Uh, what you call it? Drive after my discussion with Raj and make it. Um, Vander trolling doggy live stream. I almost got a new dog last weekend, still on the fence if I want a new commitment. Well, if you get a dog from the shelter, you can actually return the dog to the shelter and know you're a good person still, kind of. Can't believe anyone is actually watching this. Why? My dog is incredibly cute. Happy for the video title today. I've been saying for a while you thought Peterson was revival. Christian framing confirmed. I have no clue. Oh, he's probably talking about Paul. What the hell is this, and why are 8 people watching it? This is my puppy, and there are 10 people watching it. Virtually not as alone. Sleeping dogs are cute. Exactly, Mark. Exactly. Uh, virtually lost all your skills at being with persons in person, so now I only have internet skills left. Not as cute as sleeping babies, though. This is true. Sleeping babies are only cute as long as they're sleeping, whereas sleeping dogs are cute even when they aren't sleeping. This is also true. Um, why does YouTube still recommend Dave Rubin videos to me? I haven't watched anything from him in a long time. I have no clue. Sandy's here. Dog and cat themes are my life in ways. Family, friends, and coworkers often use them to communicate with me. My first people group as a kid. Lol. Um, marketing likely. Oh, I saw some trick where you can boost your Google search with one of their other products due to a bug. There are a ton of strange things going on. Um, Hello, Nahama, and a puppy is a very exciting prospect, Paul. Correct. I can't believe you're all watching this instead of my video of the video just released on my channel. This stream just went downhill because I came on, I guess. Hello, Pick. Will baptize Jacob by force. Yeah, that's not a good idea. Just splash him with holy water and see what happens. Yes, Happy is a 10-year-old puppy. What's wrong with my 10-year-old puppy? What are you trying to say? Hello, I would like to return this dog. It's defective. Do you have the receipt? That's not how shelters work. Okay, Jonathan,
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am kind of cold.
Yeah, it's balmy here in Michigan, about 45 degrees Fahrenheit. So
Yeah, it's apparently 48 degrees, and I have to get blinds for my windows. None of them have blinds, and I think that's why the inside of my house is the exact same temperature as the outside of my house. I am making eggs right now. I will be right back in 30 seconds.
okay, yeah, we don't want those to burn. said it's 48. Let's see. What is it actually here? 42 in Grand Rapids. A balmy 42. That's right. Represent Grand Rapids, Michigan, CRC Mecca. There's snow on the ground. Oh, Paul, yeah. So how I found my way here. So yeah, years ago, once upon a time, I finally decided to click on that Jordan Peterson video that everyone was talking about. And then that messed up my YouTube algorithm. And then your video, Paul, the CRC pastor title one popped up, and I said, "Oh, CRC, I know about that." And I clicked on it to see what you were saying, and then I don't know, I just kind of started paying attention to your videos too, and you were talking about this guy named Jacob. And I had sort of separately been having this kind of Noahide transformation, and Jacob was Jewish, and I thought, oh, that's cool. What's this Jewish guy doing in this CRC or Protestant world? And he was just ripping on Protestants, and I thought that was kind of funny, and so here we are. Ripping on Protestants is probably a little strong. Well, no, you rip on Protestants sometimes. So
I rip on Protestantism. I try not to rip on Protestants themselves.
No, correct. Yeah. and you rip in love.
Jacob is very funny. The Paul's comment hasn't come up yet. So negative. Yeah. What about Yesahide movement? Get it? Noahide, Yesahide.
Yeah. How about no movement at all?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like, if it started as kind of that Baptist Messianic thing, I don't know that it, like, is that movement over?
Well, I mean, Jews for Jesus still exists, but the problem is the Messianic movement they started has become a lot more serious about Torah, because when they started, and Christians do this all the time, they refer to not eating pork by Jews as something cultural. And it's like, no, that's a commandment from God, you heretic. How dare you call that cultural? That's not a cultural thing. That's something God commanded. And so the Messianic movement, and that's how you end up with the Hebrew roots movement, which is people who suddenly think they're Jewish, which they're not. So what are these people saying? Paul sends a lot of us to Jacob by talking about him, and I appreciate it. Don't say that. Poor Paul. True, I am funny, but as my mother used to tell me, looks aren't everything. No movement at all is not healthy. Keep moving. Ew, oh, my critics have been right. People keep telling me that I'm dangerous because people find me and go to strange things like Jacob and Sam. Yes, Paul, I have to tell you that the Spirit of God works through you, but by moving people away from idolatry. What can I say?
There it is.
The Paul to Jacob pipeline. There is no bacon for breakfast, but that's not because I'm a good Jew. That's just because I don't have bacon, and making bacon is troublesome. To say, you mean today? Yes, you're not shutting down your channel because you actually believe in God, unlike most Christians. Shh, I didn't say that. I will be right back. You hold court, Jonathan, and explain the Noahide ways to Paul.
The Noahide ways to Paul. I think Paul probably knows the Noahide ways decently, although there isn't. I mean, it's not a very organizational, institutional thing, so it's harder to articulate, I think, than it sounds. Yes. I like that. Yeah. No, that would leave a lot of explaining, I think. If I fly a rainbow flag, I probably won't send the right message. But I have noticed the irony of the pride flag and being a Noahide covenant symbol. Noah had it first. Yeah. I feel like I'd be swimming upstream with that message, though, unfortunately, but we'll see. I think Jacob could probably replace the live stream with Happy with a still video and achieve the same effect and save on some bandwidth.
I don't like the rainbow as a symbol of being a Noahide, personally.
No, it's not going to fly.
It's not gonna. It wouldn't fly even if there wasn't the problem with the gay pride thing, because in Judaism the rainbow is a sign of God's anger.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I've always kind of grown up hearing it as a sign of I'm not going to do this again. I mean, I suppose
Exactly.
both can be true, but it is sort of a it's kind of a peace offering is the wrong word, but
so the blessing we make on it is Zocher Habrit, who remembers his covenant, and it's actually halachically. So it's funny. I said this on the Discord server, and I won't dox Chazi's kid, but he put up a picture of his kid pointing at a rainbow, because the halacha is you don't point out rainbows to other people because it is a symbol of God's anger, and so there's a picture of Chazi's son, like looking at a rainbow. I guess he had just said the bracha and he was pointing at it, and it's pretty cute. But yes, the halacha is you're not supposed to point out rainbows to people.
Oh, so if it's a double rainbow, that's extra angry.
Not sure I would say that, but
have you seen the double rainbow video?
No. What's
Okay.
the double rainbow video?
Oh, there's this video on YouTube. I think it made the rounds a few years back where like there's a guy who's just like totally his mind's blown. There's this double rainbow he sees, and then there's this whole song, and anyway, it just became this meme. Paul asked what a halakha is. It's a law, right?
Halacha is Jewish law. Come on, you don't know halacha, Paul? I was sure you know. I did not know Ari Shafir has a hilarious bit about rainbows, but Ari Shafir has a lot of hilarious bits.
Period, yeah.
We have a chezi. Kind of. He must have gotten a phone call.
Sandy, I will at some point maybe write out a longer story, maybe in the introduction channel. I guess that's not a place for long stories, but yeah, I actually think it's a good idea for me to write down my experience, sort of quote unquote, becoming a Noahide, because it's not as what's the word? It's a very nebulous thing relative to other spiritual transformations I've had in my life.
I don't think I boiled these eggs long enough.
6.5 minutes is the perfect boiled egg. If you like your yolks a little runny.
I like my yolks a lot runny.
A lot runny.
Yeah.
So yeah, you probably want to do about 6 minutes.
Mm.
And then put them in cold water right afterwards to stop the cooking, and it's perfect.
Well, these definitely were not even 5 minutes, so we'll see what it's like.
They're just raw?
No, it's not raw. I mean, the yellow, the white looks pretty cooked, but we'll see. Also, I think it does matter how big the eggs are, and people oftentimes don't pay attention to that.
I only deal in extra large eggs. I mean, what's the point?
What's the point? Large.
Yeah.
Wow, we have a CW Weeks. I usually like fried eggs, but for today I decided to boil the eggs.
Oh, Paul asked a good question about halakha.
Can you eat egg and chicken together? Yes, you can. Yes, that's not the same as
Milk.
Milk and yeah. Yeah. Not exactly sure why, but it's fine. So I still like, my big thing is like, when you become a Noahide, like, what does your family say about all that? It's like,
I mean, I haven't like come out as a Noahide. Speaking of rainbow flags, it just isn't. Well, I mean, it's not. I don't have any particular compulsion to go out and scream it from the hilltops, I guess. And it doesn't come up in day-to-day conversation very often.
I'm guessing you're still doing the Christmas thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't go to church, but I had a tree. But you know, we're so disconnected from the whatever the pagan symbolism or actual practices. I don't know. I mean, it's next year. I think it'll probably be another time to think about it. But this year it was like too quick, or like it was too soon.
Hello, Chazi.
Hello, both of you. Hope all is well. Hope you guys are having good days. A good day so far. Thank God. Sorry, please, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, we were just talking about Christmas in the Noahide house, or the partially Noahide house.
Christmas, yeah, I mean, if you could do Shituf, having a tree, why is that a problem?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, because I mean, it's like, a symbol of something, very Christian or something like that. I don't know. I hear you. We have bigger trees with Asherah trees, less with um with Christmas trees. But
So that
aside
is,
from that, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, Christmas trees are interesting because they didn't originate with Christianity. So they're actually kind of ironically not Christian, um, but they are pagan, right? So where does the Jewish perspective oppose Christmas trees? Is it at the Christian layer or the pagan layer behind it?
I would say mostly it would probably be associated with.
And there he goes.
He's a busy guy. He's a busy guy.
I mean, it's 4:30, so like there's still phone calls coming in. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
How dare you have a job?
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, the reason this magic time is happening right now is because in Israel, even though we have managed to outdo ourselves from a technological point of view, we're very impressive. When it rains in Israel, it like becomes like the 70s again. Like all the streets break, like water falls everywhere. So there's like a lot of power outages right now, and my office keeps like dropping. So there's no more work happening today, basically. So I'm done for the day.
Sounds like fun.
Oh, so you're going to explain the Christmas tree history.
Well, yes, I know about the history. My point is more about like Jewish attitude towards that. And there's something called Chukot Hagoim, like the ways of the Gentiles or the nations, basically. And that.
But a Noahide is not. I mean, what's the problem with a Noahide?
Oh no, you're right. You're right.
You having a Christmas tree at home, that's one thing. But a Noahide having a Christmas tree at home?
Well, the intentionality would matter, I guess. And this is sort of like the general discussion we have, which is,
Yep.
It is permitted to use, we'll use a terminology of intermediaries, or let's say different vessels or different concepts of potentially the same thing, as long as you are aware of power.
And he gets another
one. right when it gets good.
I don't think the Christmas tree is.
Well, it's decoration, right? It's sentimental. It's decoration. I wouldn't say we're particularly religious about it, but I mean, Christians also don't bow down to their Christmas trees either. So I think, and again, it's like you have to disentangle the like counter missionary Jewish polemics on the internet, against just I'm just an innocent Noahide, not necessarily coming out of
my biggest concern personally would be as a thing of like confusion for your kids.
Yeah, I mean, the Christmas tree is really just a Christmas time decoration, right? So it's not like the kids see the Christmas tree and think of, crucified Jews resurrecting from the dead or anything like that, right? So I think it's or even, we do have an Advent calendar, but it's really just counting down the days till Christmas, right? So we've been pretty terrible about catechizing our kids, I guess, in retrospect, like maybe for good and for bad. Like, they don't know much about Jesus, but they don't know much about Adam and Eve either. So like we have, although they do kind of, kids, it's interesting. Like they have a really good conception of God without like, where did you learn this? We certainly weren't like beating it over your head, but they kind of just know.
Mm.
So anyway, yeah, I don't think my kids, they're not confused. They're really actually just ignorant. So I guess that's a blank slate spot's better than having to
Chezi's kids point at rainbows. So I mean, how much less can you?
Sorry about that again.
So actually, on the Christmas tree front, like I was watching the video. I think Jacob, you posted or somebody posted in the Discord. About Christianity, It was one of those. What's it? OR. What's the yeshiva that Rabbi Bredowitz teaches at?
Or Sameach?
Yeah. It's the younger rabbi. I don't think I've seen him before, but somebody posted a video of him. Oh, the one that was like warning very, very yeshiva-ish or something.
Yeah. I actually watched that. I was wondering if, yeah, it was interesting.
Well, I watch things at 2x speed by default. That's my normal. So, but I have to watch that one again slower because it was just it was hard to follow. For me.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure without a background in Talmudics, you can really follow that video
Sure.
at all.
Right.
Yeah. Chezia, did you watch it?
What? No, I mean, I heard you guys were talking about a video, but which one?
Yeah, so there's a video. There's a.
I will. I'll send it to him. Or I'll post
He's
it.
back.
Which video is this?
It's a young rabbi at Or Sameach who's giving kind of a halacha shiur, and it's called Catechizing Christianity. So he's basically introducing the students to the questions of shituf and Christianity, and like what we can and cannot do as Jews with Christians, as opposed to normal pagans, as opposed to Muslims.
And where does he fall on the spectrum of this little corner?
Well, I mean, he was trying to basically just present like halacha, so he talks about Maimonides and the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah and the Noda B'Yehuda and the Chafetz Chaim, and so like, I mean, I'm guessing it was a lot more machmir than you would be, but he seemed pretty down center lane, I thought.
I guess the silver lining, I'm glad that people are still talking about these topics and showing that there are varied opinions, because obviously I don't know if they would be having that conversation. I mean, I'll take a look at the video, but I don't know if they were having that conversation like 20 years ago. You could tell me, Jacob, if you thought that was a conversation they would be having 20 years ago, or you thought it was like a little more open.
No, I mean, this is the type of thing. I mean, when I was at Or Sameach 20 years ago, we had to have these conversations, because like Lamaisa, when you're talking about the halacha of, are you allowed to have a business partner who's a Christian, right? That's an actual halachic thing that everybody who goes out into the business world has to deal with. I think you come from a much more different background, because look, in an FFB yeshiva,
Explain what that means to people watching.
From birth yeshiva for people who, like Chezi, grew up surrounded by Judaism and weren't constantly dealing with things which aren't Jewish, and certainly, once you're going off to college or going off to work or whatever, then you have to know this stuff. And as for Nechama's question, okay, it's not prohibited. So to explain the prohibition, you don't point out rainbows, because it is a sign of God's anger, and if that person doesn't see it, then maybe God isn't angry with them. So posting it on YouTube or something like on Facebook or Instagram or a picture like that, that's not similar, because a person who's seeing it is not actually seeing the rainbow. They wouldn't be making the bracha. and you're not. So the idea is that you only see a rainbow if God is trying to remind you that if not for the Brit of Noah, he would be destroying the world, and that's a frightful thing for God to be reminding you of.
Just to respond on that end. So like, yeah, I don't know about posting it on social media, like Jacob just explained, due to the history of our relationship with the rainbow. Having said that, like pointing it out to a child for like educational purposes and explaining to them like how the light is being affected by the photons are being affected by the water, explaining those kind of concepts, and
Explaining
also,
that they should make a bracha.
and of course explaining that they should be make a blessing. However, this didn't come up when I was looking with him at the rainbow, but it came up something else that was going on in school by his. But we were talking a little about like the Younger Dryas theory. I don't know if you know about that, Jacob.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
So the Younger Dryas theory, according to some scientists today, is that Earth was hit by was impacted by some meteorites around like 11,000 years ago, and this created like a tremendous amount of change on the globe as we know it. So much so that places like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that dates back like around 10,000 to 11,000 years, and the pyramids, potentially the Sphinx, all these things date much further back than we were originally taught growing up, as in like it doesn't really start like 6,000 years ago, but there might have been like very sophisticated civilizations around 10 to 12,000 years ago that were completely wiped out. This obviously leads to people to start then having theories about places like Atlantis or things like that. But the point being that apparently, if you take this theory seriously, the flooding that occurred due to this impact, and there's people that trace some of this, would potentially be one of the origin stories of, let's say, if you're looking at the flood as a memory of something real that happened. I'm not giving the causation or the reason behind that, but the point being that like there was civilizations, these things were destroyed, and the story of the flood, just as far as it being like humanity dealing with a massive change, whether it's Sargon of Akkad or Noah, these are memories, older memories that we still have from that time. So I wasn't explaining it to my son that way, but I gave him just like little hints of things like that.
Honestly, for me, like if I had a son, that the second Rashi on the Torah is just so fundamental, and so few people spend time actually looking at it and understanding it. Like, the Torah is not a history book. Make do with
Correct.
that. Be fine with that. It's like,
no, he knows that it's not. He knows it's not a history book. He knows it's also not a science book. But however, he knows that this is, through interpreting the Torah and our understanding of the Torah, these are the glasses and the lenses we should be wearing when we're looking at all these other things. So I'm not saying that one should have a Bible open when he's studying science. However, even if my son decides to become an engineer, I would want him to still use his framing of the world via his understanding of the Bible.
Yeah, I mean, again, so for me, so I'll talk about is Jerusalem the center of the world, right? Does the sun rotate around Jerusalem? And I would say yes. Why do I say that? Because I understand enough about relativity to know that all motion is relative. And my framework is such that if something is going to be the fixed point around which everything else revolves, that's Jerusalem. Now, does that mean that when I go into a science class, like I think, oh, there's a particularity in the frame of Jerusalem that, like, when you're talking about cosmology, you need to necessarily be taking that into consideration? No.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think I would agree with that, and I think, like, you're gonna have a very hard time, like, trying to pull out metaphysics from the story of the chariot and then, like, apply that to, like, the life you're living today necessarily. But it's more about, I mean, and when I say the Torah, that the oral Torah as well, this goes back to, like, what we discussed about being, like, an operating system. So the Torah is the operating system that sort of you start. So even if, as an engineer, if my day as an engineer is still wrapped in with daily prayer and stopping to pray on food and being mindful of my surroundings within that context, so that clearly also affects the kind of science I do. People say, like, I leave my religion at the door when I'm a scientist. So that's true with regards to, let's say, can I give you this medicine that has meat and milk in it? Like, so all those questions potentially should be stayed outside, it could be outside the door, but you are still, this is something that Jordan Peterson said in his conversation with Joe Rogan, but not the last one, the one before. And he was going on about how, like, as far as the Western world, like, almost all literature is based on, like, the Bible, and that's why, like, all jargon that we use and all the language that we use is really rooted inside the Bible. So it's like it's already too late, basically, even for an atheist. Like, all the terms he uses are in that. So that would be true with regards to the religious engineer, right? So I'm saying he would be fully embedded in that system. So yes, he's aware of engineering jargon, but he's still going to be viewing that through his operating system.
The way I've been phrasing this is, I don't believe in a God I can see through a telescope. I believe
Again,
I don't believe in a God I can see through a telescope. I believe in a God that makes it possible for me to see through a telescope.
Mm-hmm. By the way, just looking it through a telescope, because it just makes me think of, like, the James Webb telescope, which is, like, so amazing. Just because it to me, at least, it shows me, like, how awesome God is. But that also relates to the rainbow issue. I believe in, like, the Gemara, the issue in the Talmud, the issue of looking at the rainbow is not necessarily, and I could be wrong, but it's not necessarily because of the history of what's, like, God was going to destroy the earth, rather that you are looking at God's glory. We also have this in the prayer on the Day of Atonement, when we sing that when the high priest would come out of the Holy of Holies, his face would be shining like the rainbow.
Okay,
so that
you seem to hate the idea that God could get angry at people.
I didn't say you can't get angry at people. I know what the Bible says. I'm just letting you know that the Talmud. Okay, now you're asking me to take out the big guns. 1 second.
The bracha is Zocher Habrit.
Okay, the Talmud in Chagiga, 17, first page.
You can share your screen and everybody can see your Talmud.
I'm on my phone and I'm looking at my computer screen.
Okay, so let me pull it up. Talmud
Chagiga.
Chagiga. Where's Chagiga? Chagiga 17 what?
Tet Zayin Amud Aleph.
Tet Zayin Amud Aleph.
While Jacob's looking this up, the point being that it's someone that is looking just for fun at a rainbow would be like, you're not showing enough respect. You sort of should avert your eyes, so to speak, or take your shoes off, Moses. Like, you should know your place, and that would be the reason why you should look at it. But in the general codex, like the Or HaChaim, it says that you could just look at it if you just want to stare for a second and take a look. The idea is not to make a spectacle out of it. But perhaps I'm wrong, Jacob.
You said 17b?
Ted Zion Aleph, A. But maybe I'm wrong, and I'm very fine to do that publicly.
I'm trying to find it, but I'm remembering, I mean, this is a halacha in the Mishnah Brura. You're not allowed to, he says, I'm not finding in anything. Tet Zion is 16 or 17?
Tet Zion is
17.
17, correct. I'm with Aleph. It says three that look, these three people that look at these specific things, their eyes become dark. It says a navkehot, which this reminds me of like this idea I had once with. Well, I don't want to jump around on concepts right now.
Where is it on the page?
I need to look at Surat Adaf over here. 1 second.
I mean, no, on Safaria, it tells you which paragraph. 17a what?
I don't look at Safaria.
You don't look at Safaria.
No, I do look at Safaria. I'm not too here. I'm opening it up right now. It's on. Why is that?
It's talking about Sukkot here.
Okay, 1 second. It's on 11.
11?
Yeah, Yud Aleph.
Yud Aleph. Oh, you were only 6 pages off. Okay.
No. It's on. It's a second. Tet Zion with Aleph. Row 11.
Tet Zion Amud Aleph.
Are you in Chagiga?
Yes, Chagiga.
Okay.
Tet Zion Amud Aleph. So towards the end of the page?
Towards the end.
Yesh la tashlumin kol shiva. What?
No. It says Zeh hamistakel bakeshet. Rav Yosef Omer. I'll read it in English. Let's do it already now. Here, 1 second. I'll switch it to the English one.
Keshet.
Uh,
Keshet is with a tough at the end or a tet at the end? Tough.
They switched it into, once it's switched into English, it changes though, because you have many more words in English.
No.
Wing, the boy my dance, the footing. Wow, it's really different.
It's not Tet Zayin, it's Tet Vav.
Well, I'm here. I'm looking at it, Tet Zayin. I just started reading it to you, brother.
I don't know what to tell you. I mean, are you looking on my screen? It's 16a.
All right, so read it. What does it say?
It says, Rabbi Yehuda, son of Rabbi Nachmani, the disseminator of Resh Lakish, interpreted a verse homiletically. Whoever looks at the following 3 things, his eyes will grow dim. One who looks at a rainbow, at a nasi, and at the priests. He explains, at a rainbow, as it is written, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud on the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord, Ezekiel. At a nasi, that's the head of the Sanhedrin, as it is written, and you shall put on of your splendor upon him, which indicates the splendor of the divine presence rested upon Moses, who was the nasi at the time. The third item, looking at priests, is referring to one who looks at the priests when the temple is standing, as they would stand on their platform and bless Israel with the ineffable name, and that's why we don't look when the Kohanim go up to Duchad. Okay, what are you trying to say here?
Well, I was saying the reason is not because they're not saying because of because God was going to destroy the world, is because there is a resemblance of the glory of God.
Okay, that's if you're looking. What does this have to do with pointing it out to other people?
But the point would be, if you point it out to other people, you're just pointing out, again, you're pointing out the glory of God, so to speak. So the reason is not because Don't look at this, because if you see this, then you are now connected to the God was going to destroy the world, and now you're seeing this is because of your sin. Rather, this is disconnected to the anger that God had towards the world at that time, and this is not related anymore. There was that marker that we'll always remember, and we make a blessing. However, if you shouldn't look at the rainbow not because of because you're in a status of sin, rather because it's the glory of God, and you should avert your eyes.
Yeah, that's
I-
right. That's seems right to me.
One second, I'm in the middle of.
What
Yeah, go ahead.
what I have to like find out where the Mishnah Berurah was and look all this stuff up, because ultimately when it comes down to it, I don't see how the one negates the other.
Well,
You should look at, if you want to know where it is, as far as you want to look at the Torah Chaim, Siman Reish Chaf Tet.
Tur Orachayim.
They bring on the base Yosef, and what they say is, you shouldn't look at you are prohibited if you're going to be staring for a long time at the rainbow,
So
but just a short glance is fine,
So
which
the
relates to
Torah-
Nechama's question, by the way.
Orachayim, what?
Siman Reish Chaf Tet.
Resh 229?
229 should be.
Okay. Haro'eh hakeshet omer baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam zocher habrit. Someone who sees a rainbow says, "Blessed are you, the Tetragrammaton, our God, the King of the universe, who remembers the covenant, the ne'eman bebrito, and is trustworthy in his covenant, the kayam b'mamaro, and establishes that which he says, the asur lehistalkel bo harbe, and it is forbidden to look at it too much. Haro'eh chama b'tfutat, who, well, that's a different bracha. That's okay. So that's all he says is
So it'd have to be the
bracha.
comment. It would have to be the commentary off of him then, off of that.
So the base Yosef says,
Yeah.
Haro'eh keshet omer baruch v'chulu, beperek haro'eh, in chapter, so Brachot 59a.
By the way,
Tosfot
Jonathan-
explains there.
Sorry. How
That's
crazy
good.
that this is all about the blessing of a rainbow.
I mean, I get it. I'm waiting to hear. Well, I mean, so from my perspective, right? It's like looking at the sun, right? Like you don't look at the sun because it'll make you go blind because it'll burn your eyes, right? And so like,
Well, you should look at the sun early in the morning, but yes, generally speaking.
sure, but like just the general received wisdom about looking at the sun, and so that's the primary prohibition. But and so don't point out the sun to other people lest they look at the sun, and that's not good. So it's not the pointing out; it's just the fact that you will then have somebody else be looking at the sun, which is like not a good idea, right? So that's the analogy that I'm thinking is like the philosophical point here. But then the part about why the rainbow is is what it is different. That's
So I look at it a little differently, because if you see a king, or if you see if you see a king, you have to make a blessing that God shared his from his honor, basically. And if you see someone that's like, some crazy genius, you're supposed to make a blessing as well. And the point would be that you are constantly supposed to be, recognizing God's involvement sort of in all these things. And if it's something that's really out of the ordinary, so to speak, even though it's natural, you want to really stop, take pause, and pray God. Now there's a very there's a balance over there, because if you stare, like you said, if you stare too long or if you fly too close to the sun like Icarus, you're going to end up melting your wings. So the point is point out, like, look at the rainbow and make your blessing. And there's packed in there deep, like, the destruction, the atonement, chaos and order coming together. So it's very, very deep. You could say like a whole class just on that little blessing. However, now don't just stand and look at it idly, because then you are forgetting your place again, which is like, you are allowed to be in awe, and you're allowed to take in, and so much so that the religion has even systemized it for you and gave you a blessing to do so. But if it's just like loose looking at a rainbow, like yelling double rainbow, like that video, and just being completely like, entranced in this and only in this, then the attitude is like, you should avert your eyes, because, you don't want to be, you're not orienting yourself properly. You can't just be staring at this like nonstop and like, and be in this mode where you're not being appreciative of where you are right now. So I guess like it would be an example that the Torah doesn't want you just spending idle time.
But is this an example of something that applies to everybody, Jew and Gentile alike, or is it just for Jews?
No, this is just for Jews.
This
is just for Jews. We don't, like, the only things that apply across the board are the 7 Noahide laws. The Beis Yosef says that the Rosh was asked how we look at it, and he differentiates between somebody who just looks as opposed to somebody who's mistakel, somebody who's like staring at it and stuff. But again, you're supposed to be a brisker, Chezi. This is a completely different thing. You looking as opposed to you showing somebody else.
Well, first of all, I wasn't focusing on like the specific showing someone else, which you could be like is like a different issue. That's what I
was saying is usher.
But it would almost be the issue would be not because of, but like because why?
Chezi, the question is, you see a rainbow, you make a bracha. There are other people around you, and you want to give them the opportunity to make a bracha, right? Wrong.
No, I understand the case. And my question is like, the reason you wouldn't be doing that is because of the Noah connection, or because of like the getting lost in awe connection?
No, so tell them not to stare too long when they make the bracha. That's fine. We say that we don't point it out to other people. That's, if I remember correctly, it's the Mishnah Berurah. I forget where it would be in the Mishnah Berurah. Probably the same thing. Orach Chaim Resh, what was it? 229. Here, let me get my Mishnah Berurah.
While you're looking for that, this is just a word association. So when Isaac is blessing the sons, it starts with ve'enav kehot. His eyes were dim, and when after there's the whole switcheroo with Jacob, and after there's the whole switcheroo with Jacob and Esau, and he realizes what happened, he has vayachrad charada gdola. He was petrified, and one could ask, just because his eyes were dim, he didn't really see the difference between Esau and Jacob. Like, it wasn't just a visual thing. Clearly, they both had different habits. They grew up to be different people. What is it that he did? No one in the neighborhood was talking to him about this stuff. No one told him, by the way, your son Esau, he's a little problematic. So it was a little curious that the reason he was confused is because his eyes were dim. However, if you look at the opposite of eyes dimming, this would be with Adam and Eve eating from the fruit of good and evil, and once they eat from the fruit, it says vatifakachna enehem, and their eyes were opened. And I had this theory where when Isaac had to go through the sacrifice with his father, and him being okay to do so was so traumatic. And there's even sages that say like angels were crying in his eyes, and he really did die and come back. But either way, that was so traumatic for Jacob that he reverted to like a pre-sin state where his eyes were dim again. And by dim, that means he couldn't differentiate between good and evil the way people did after the quote unquote fall. And that was just that little thought on that. Jacob's still looking hard for this thing.
No, the Mishnah Berurah says, "Haroed keshet uchulu, ein kedai lahagid lachavero sheyesh keshet mitam motzi diba," and it says, "Het Aleph." Is that a commentary on the Chazon Ish?
Het Aleph could be the Chazon Ish, yes.
Yeah, motzi diba. I don't. I mean, what is motzi diba?
Motzi diba is you are talking badly about.
That he says mitam motzi diba.
Oh, on God, because like you're sort of pointing out that like, well, you're motzi diba on ourselves because you're pointing out that we're sinning because this should have been here due to sin. So that would relate to your premise. So there's connecting back to the Noahide story.
This is what the Mishnah Berurah says.
Okay, so I'm reading a different answer over here, which is because a video or like a movie is not a living thing, then it's okay.
What?
And if you
sharing it on
share
Facebook,
exactly, it's back to
fine. Yeah, I think that's
back to Nechama's question,
Yeah,
right? So that's the sharing it on Facebook is fine. A, because you're not seeing the real thing. B, because like it's not in the moment, so you don't have what you just mentioned. You're not actually talking badly about yourself or as like the status of like the people, because you're not saying that they're worth.
That's funny. So the Mishnah Berurah is almost saying like it's Hilchos Lashon Hara.
Almost like it's Lashon Hara, and then
okay, let me explain to people why I'm laughing.
Sure, go ahead.
Because the Mishnah Berurah is written by the Chofetz Chaim, who was known to be incredibly strict, and he wrote several books on the laws of Lashon Hara. So like it's kind of funny that he's going on that particular aspect of it more than the thing. That's why I was laughing. Yeah.
There is a mention over here though that if you want to record it in a way for artistic reasons that can amplify one's faith in God, then there's no problem.
Look, if you have reasons to do it, you have reasons to do it. But stam when you see it, like you don't point it out to other people. That's all I was saying.
I guess this is also it's also very indicative of just in general in Judaism, which is like there's a purpose for putting on your shoes and a way to do so, and like everything like you shouldn't, which like you mentioned has to do with Lashon Hara, which is a very intense. Lashon Hara actually means like bad tongue or evil tongue, and it's a tremendous amount of regulations about how one could talk. Not talk about anyone else, not talk about any bad things about other people. You're only allowed to really talk about anyone else with your wife, because like with a spouse, you're sort of protected in the shield of like you guys are one unit, so you could speak.
Nechama has a great question. Is it Lashon Hara to post it against yourself, to post the picture on Facebook?
Because you outed yourself as having looked at the rainbow?
You outed yourself as somebody that God showed a rainbow to.
Oh, that part. All right.
It's a little crazy, but
wait a minute. Okay. It's just funny. I remember in the fall there was a massive rainbow that I saw outside, and I was like, oh, like Noahide covenant, and that was like significant-ish for me, right? But like maybe I was seeing a bad omen.
No,
So now,
see,
ta-
this is
take the power back.
Hold on. This is part of understanding that, look, God shows you everything for a reason. And at that time, you certainly weren't thinking, he wasn't reminding you of the flood, and it was something that you found faith affirming, and that's beautiful.
Right.
And like this is part of knowing proper legalism, which Christians don't know. Like in Judaism, like this is why I tell people be very careful if you're just reading Maimonides straight through, right? Because each halacha has its context.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and Sherry, we get into really big things between evil tongue and gossip, and like, yes, there's all kinds of various things.
Gossip,
but
that's the word. Gossip.
Gossip is different from lashon
No,
hara.
I know it's rechilut, but I was just thinking
Yeah.
about that term in English, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, everything has its proper context. One of my favorite things when I was at the Israeli Museum, towards the entrance, there was a big sign that said, "Every rule has exceptions," or something like that. Right? Every rule has exceptions, including this one. Right?
Right.
And
Truth is relative.
No.
No,
Chalila.
that's the joke, right?
Yeah.
That's an absolute statement.
Right. And so everything has to be understood within its proper context. And so any single halacha has its proper context. Like Chezi walking down the street, and when he sees a rainbow, it's different him teaching his son, because he has a chiyuv, he has a obligation to educate his son. So it's not the same as him turning around to somebody else walking down the street and saying, hey, everybody, did you see the rainbow? Right? And so everything has its context and its intentions and its how and why you do it.
There's a lot that could fall under the rubric of Jacob mentioned I have to, educate my kid, but there is an actual specific education, a requirement to teaching your son how to swim. But that I look at that as more of a general term for teaching your son how to survive, and that doesn't only mean, let's say, it's really just teaching your children how to cope. Where it's more than just, obviously, yes, he should learn how to swim because you want to make sure that he knows how to handle himself in dangerous situations, but it's teach yourself how to swim socially, teach yourself how to swim emotionally. So there's a big requirement on parents.
And that requirement is actually a requirement of Derech Eretz. And Derech Eretz is something that does apply even to Noachides, because it's something that comes before the commandments.
Well, I'm blanking on who says this, but he says that the seven laws get their power from the Derech Eretz. That's part of the Derech Eretz, which is why it precedes the. Even though that person's having a machloket, he had a disagreement with Maimonides, because Maimonides connects it all to Moses. It has to stem back to Moses as far as Maimonides is concerned. So it doesn't go back that far back as into Derech Eretz, which precedes the quote unquote Torah. So just like another interesting little tidbit there.
Nechama, you need to start running your own Bible study, because you have a lot of interesting things to say, and B, at least when it comes to Nach, Chezi and I don't know what we're talking about. So a Beis Yaakov girl is going to teach Nach a lot better than anybody who went to a boys' yeshiva.
No, we do Nach. Like in Israel high school, you gotta get tested in Nach.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
so you answer all of Jason's questions, because I have no clue when he's asking me all these questions.
I don't see any questions from Jason.
No. During the Bible study last week, he had a bunch of questions, and I didn't have any answers for them.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be heading off.
Yes.
10. but
Steer
I'm still with you guys.
clear of Skittles. That's the important part.
Skittles, why is this like for like because they're not kosher or
Skittles
something?
are rainbow flavored.
Oh, the candy. I gotcha. Yeah. Gotta stay away from Skittles, away from
I
the
think Skittles
leprechaun.
have gelatin in them.
They used to.
Might not be kosher. They used to? Okay.
Well, just as far as gelatin, this was like this. You just like this was also devastating to me when I was a child. There was this vending machine, and I asked my dad for some money, and he gave me some money, and I put it in. I took out this Mentos, and I came in, and my dad took it from my hand. He's like, "You can't have this." I was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, he's like, "There's gelatin in it. There's pig gelatin in it." So first of all, you obviously can't have pork. Gelatin is part of like the crushed bones that they take out. There are some that do eat pig gelatin. There are some that don't eat pig gelatin. Ever since then, Mentos and most gelatins have already moved to fish gelatin, which are not an issue. But yes, when I heard that for the first time, I was like, "This is like, how could God do this to me?" I got my Mentos, so it was very hard for me. I mean, there's cultural stuff. When McDonald's came to Israel, and it was kosher, my dad was like, "No." He's like, "We're not eating McDonald's. Like, they brought not kosher. Like, they stand for like the cheeseburger, and we're not going to have it." And like for years, we just wouldn't have McDonald's, not because it wasn't kosher, just because like we were like,
yeah, the McDonald's in Israel is kosher. What's the problem?
So it was just too, and so I have this with my wife right now because I have no problem eating Mickey D's since, but where my wife makes like this fake crab salad, and it looks like pieces of like fake crab, and like there's this orange color. I'm like, I can't. It's just too much for me. It's too intense. It just looks like not kosher. So, and this relates to also, if we live in smart cities, I'm not looking forward to drive on Shabbat.
Do you eat Bacos? Do you eat Bacos?
No.
Really? They're kosher.
But so I would be the first one to tell someone to go and eat it. There's no problem with that. And if I'm and if I'm abroad or if I'm traveling, I know how to be extremely lenient with my dietary restrictions.
You're
when
such a
if needed.
machmir. You're all into chumras, Chazi.
But this,
I love it. I love it.
And when living in Israel, like if I can, why not try to be more strict or more, more.
Why are people so anti McDonald's? By the way, in Los Angeles, there was at least a Subway here that was block kosher.
Oh, they had Subways in Israel that were kosher, and they had Nathan's that was kosher. They had Dunkin' Donuts for a while, but that was like a flop. They also had Starbucks, which was a flop because like Israelis don't like their coffee tasting like coffee. They rather tasted like depressing mud. So that didn't really work well in Israel. But yeah, these are again, like it could be that my kids will feel more comfortable.
By the way, why don't you guys have an estuary? There's Nechama, you, Gilad, and Teddy. All four of you are in Israel.
I don't know Gilad, and I also don't know Teddy. So that's number one. Number two, if I recall correctly, Nechama's pretty far, not up north, but she's high up. She would have to come down.
I drive 2 hours to my estuary.
If I recall correctly, Nechama said she would come to Jerusalem to see PVK if we did this like thing. So like I don't know. She has like a very high.
People are already buying their tickets.
I spoke to one organization. I'm speaking to another organization that like sort of like oversees like these full sort of these trips. What do you think people would feel comfortable like sort of taking on as far as like an expense, including let's say like
I said it once and I'll say it again. I think we should have a Shabbaton.
Yeah.
And that's there, and that's the main thing. And then as far as other things, people can decide to do all kinds of other things.
Mm-hmm.
And some people can afford more and some people can afford less. But
who has children?
Well,
take the whole fan to Israel. That would be a spicy meatball.
Well,
and logistically challenging.
So that's also the question. So like if all these people, I'm talking about the, like, let's say Yosef wants to come or Luke wants to come
Nechama's
or
inviting her entire family for the Shabbaton. I'm telling you, this Shabbaton is going to be lit.
so even if you do, let's just pretend, let's say it's a Shabbaton. So you have like you have a Friday and you have Shabbat, which like are, you have those 2 days. You're going to have to do, we're going to have some Christian content.
So first of all, okay, I mean, you know what?
Here it comes.
There are all the Christian churches in Eretz Yisrael hold Sabbath services on Saturday anyway. They hold their, so if people want to go to church, they can go to church on Saturday morning.
No, I know that. Yeah, but there's also, let's say now, okay, we want to have, let's pretend, for example, it's PVK and Jonathan Peugeot is down to come. We'll see, okay? And Zevi, do you want to have speakers? Do you want to have like a microphone? Do you want people to hear things? So like then it's like, Shabbat is like.
Halila! What are you talking about on Shabbat? No, it's going to be
correct.
Small on Shabbat. And then Motzei Shabbos, you have a kumzitz, and then you can have microphones and you can have big things. Motzei Shabbos.
So you're saying keep it like as a 2-day thing?
Yeah. What?
Mm-hmm. I'm listening. And what are you thinking about? What do you think about like as far as and which is what I was talking to people about already, like to these organizations about, like, do we want to lock down some sort of like hostel hotel where it's giving a deal to people, or everyone does their own thing?
Such a shagit sometimes, and then so from at other times. It's so funny.
Well, why am I a shagits right now?
Talking about microphones on Shabbos, Halila.
No, my point was that's why I don't want to have it just on Shabbat, because you're going to be limited from doing that. That's it. That was my point. That's we need another day.
Well, you'll have some Shabbos
Are
stories.
you in Los Angeles already?
No.
So how are you getting down here? You're flying down?
Yeah.
Okay, so when's your flight?
About a little afternoon.
Okay.
I arrive at 2.
Okay.
Paul, thank you for the conversation with Raj. It was such a pleasure. I'm glad it went on a little longer than usual. And Luke and
I'm speaking to Raj today, actually.
I know you're speaking to him too. I'm very happy about that as well, because I'm going to get
Raj
your
is like the
perspective.
hot girl, the new hot girl at the dance. Everybody wants to dance with him.
It could be, because it's beautifully. It allows us to color this corner more beautifully. Just bringing in more information. It's bringing in like that and specifically, which I'm like contrasting to like Mormonism. Like this is like relatively like a new religion, and it's very interesting to see him like sort of.
Sikit is 500 years old. What are you talking about?
You're talking to a Jew, dude.
Relatively new. It's not one of the new religions. Yeah.
All right, I'm sorry. It's a very old religion. Okay, sure. If it's using some of its terms from Jewish jargon, I think it's old enough. You know what I mean? Like if it's new enough. So that was just on the Raj front. But you jumped on right now when we were talking about this Israel trip. So Jacob was thinking that we should keep it more like condensed, as in like if people want to stay longer or they want to stay more time in Israel, do your thing.
Come earlier. Some people will stay later. I think on Purim Katan we have the Shabbaton, and
What's a Shabbaton? That's what I came to ask.
Okay, so a Shabbaton. Okay, so Shabbaton for obviously derives from Shabbat, and a Shabbaton is something that is generally done in many religious schools, and because much of the time it's sort of like a dormitory. The students are there. So a Shabbaton is you are going to spend all of the Sabbath together. So there's pray, and then there's food, and then there's a speaker, and then sometimes there's like a hike or you go out on a walk, and then the next day there's another speaker. You eat, you pray, and then usually at the end of this you go into singing songs by some bonfire, and you get into like a rhythm of everyone singing together. So they have a lot of these all over.
Church retreat.
Yeah, it's like a retreat.
Yeah, it
Exactly.
is.
Yeah.
It's exactly like a retreat. Yes.
Like a church
Definitely.
retreat.
Yeah, it's
You
exactly
guys,
like
you guys should have the event. That can be one thing, because Jacob's right. These things should scale, and then roll into a tour, so that some people will come for sort of the event and the tour, and do something like that. I mean, that will then some people who've always wanted to take tour, always wanted to see some things, then this is their event and their tour. They it's a twofer. So
Right, so
what I would do is the week before the Shabbaton, tour Jewish sites and stuff, and then you have the Shabbaton, and then the next week you have the Christian sites and stuff. And if
that's a
somebody
lot of
wants to
weeks.
no, it's 2 weeks. A 2-week vacation is not a crazy thing.
I'm with you. I also don't want to, and you could be like, tough luck for them. I don't want to create a major sense of, let's say, of like FOMO, of like where people feel like, well, I can't afford this and I can't do this, and now I'm like, I'm not going to be part of this. So like, yes, it doesn't have to be equal for everyone, but I don't want to feel like I could come for the event and now everyone's sending me pictures of like this 2-week time that they're in. So I just want it to be like a little more, and people are coming with families.
If you're flying internationally, like if you're flying internationally, you're probably going to want to stay for more than just a weekend.
I hear that.
But I mean, if you packed in things like Wednesday to Wednesday, where you have things a little more compressed at the end of the, Jewish week, week 1, Christian week 2, and that way
people can come.
People can kind of, fit into that window.
Right. So like I said, I was telling Jacob, I've identified like 2 different companies that sort of like specialize in this. I've been talking to them, sort of getting like the lay of the land as far as like what exactly we would want to offer like in this this package suite to people. And I've been getting some people reaching out to me, really asking me about this. So it seems like there is interest about something like this, and there's enough time seemingly to pull this off. So yeah, it's definitely something that I'm still thinking about.
Have you been talking to Mo about it?
Well, I have spoken to Mo, Jacob. I spoke to Mo. I had the whole schmooze. I agreed with him that it shouldn't be like a top-down sort of thing. We're here to let people grow and sprout, and like it's more about like Sauron's eye. We should be focusing on where we should be focusing. So I'm all for that. However, he said he wanted to, put some things in writing, clear things some out for himself, and following which we could bombard him with such things. Also, if there's any events that are happening sooner or need more of his attention right now, I wouldn't want to cut the queue. So I want to make sure that he's focusing on what needs to be focused.
Chad,
specifically.
People will do whatever they want. It's a matter of having prepared things for people to know if they want. If somebody doesn't want to do something, they cannot do it. That's easy. But you want to have stuff available for people.
Yeah, I want my hand held the whole time if possible.
So that obviously we're gonna there's a few major sites that we want to hit up. There's a whole day that I want to do up in the Galilee, right? So we want to hit up like a few of the churches and the hot spots by Tiberias, and I don't know if people want to go to where Mary Magdalene's from, like on Migdal, because they're all very close to each other, and I think I would assume some churches are less.
The problem with Tzfat is it takes forever to get there, even from Tiberia. I loved Tzfat. I absolutely loved Tzfat, but it's like a 6-hour drive from Tiberia, and if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but if we break it up, like for example, if you do an up north day and you break it up properly, you could really travel throughout most of the country. And if we just stop properly for like here, there's going to be an explanation and like an exercise here. We're going to discuss something over here, then we'll continue up to the next site. And it also allows you to sort of look at at multiple spots together and discuss them sort of together, see how, you know, they all relate to each other. So Israel's small enough to pull something like that off. And I think people are coming in like everyone's going to be like hyped up. I don't know if people are going to be like complaining that like they're driving like a little.
Well, driving a little, but it's if we get a tour bus, then it's actually. I mean, the question.
Of course,
becomes,
there's a tour bus.
How many people are coming? That's the big question.
I'm assuming it. Well, I was talking, and you know, maybe I'm like I'm hyping it up, but I was talking about like 2 tour buses.
So 100 people.
Something like that.
PVK says, "Wow."
I saw his wow. So, and I'm thinking about it like this. So, first of all, it's a year from now. You know, if this whole thing's a flop by then, so you know, I'll know beforehand.
I actually think we might end up with a lot more than 100 people.
Yeah, Jacob, your estimations. How many people are you coming to the meetup tonight, Jacob?
Yes.
1 billion people.
Stefan might be driving all the way from Santa Barbara.
That's one. Okay. Is he like a clown car? Do people just keep on like?
He's driving like 4 hours. People came internationally just to Chicago. People are really excited about this stuff, and going to Israel in February. There's a reason why I said February. It's actually a lot cheaper than the rest of the year, and Nechama's talking about her parents and her siblings coming.
Well, first of all, I'm just also mentioning right now, and like Nechama, obviously that would be great. I'm at least personally.
Sandy is already planning on coming.
Sandy's coming.
She's planning.
Yeah.
Jonathan
definitely
sounds like he's thinking about it.
I mean, Nate said he's into it. Sherry said she's into it. Jess said he's into it.
You know what? We need to actually set a date and then start asking people if they're coming. And the fact is, asking for like $100 deposit to make sure people are serious. No. If we're planning, if you're getting a tour bus, $100 deposit is not anything.
Yeah, if only Jacob would have created some sort of board where these kind of decisions could
be made. Yeah.
Yeah, but Jacob, you're not on that board. So please, Jacob, please know your place. Okay.
You're on the board. I'm not on the board. I know my place.
So that is something to throw up to Mo. I also think that, like, again, in a year from now, this could grow exponentially. So, 100 people then doesn't sound so crazy, with the allure of traveling to Israel as well, which is like something that like people could wrap into that a vacation as well. And it's also a question of like what kind of event it is. Like if we could pull off like PVK, Jonathan Peugeot and Zevi Slavin, I look at that as like, that's a pretty big event. If you're talking about like just as far as like,
if Peugeot's coming, you're definitely going to have over 100 people.
But I think like he's down to go, and like if his fare is covered, why would you not want to do it? I know him and Jordan Peterson had a fantastic time over here. They were talking about coming back.
If Peugeot is coming, you might end up with Jordan Peterson just showing up.
I don't know if you want it. I don't know if you want him over there though. That changes the whole. It's not the little corner then.
With Jordan Peterson coming if he wants.
I know, but I'm asking you a question then. Like, if you had that, like, I see it being like, I know this sounds silly, but in my mind, I have like this beautiful moment where you are having people sitting by, eating amazing foods, overlooking the Sea of Galilee, talking to PVK and Zevi, or just having like an awesome deep conversation with them. And if you have like the Thunderbolt over there, it's going to be very hard for people to focus or want to talk about anything else, or what does he think about this? So like, I don't know. I'm not saying no. If he calls me, I'll tell him, I'll think about it, Jordan. Jordan, I said, I'll think about it. Okay, please. I get it. You, Tammy, your daughter, meat. We heard. We get it. Okay. There's a steak for you. Guys, on this note,
yeah.
I got a
Okay,
bust. Bye.
Peace.
My big thing has always been having something that is able to scale and take in as many people. I don't want any limits to how many people can come to this. And if 1,000 people want to come, that's beautiful. The fact is, a lot of people go on Prager's Israel tour every year anyway, and there's lots of Israel tours. So it's not like this is going to be the only game in town. But if Pajot does show up, you can expect a bunch of Ortho Bros. And yeah.
Yeah, they got a lot of disposable income, those Ortho Bros.
One of the things that you begin to realize is that there are a lot of single people in this little corner of the internet, and single people have more disposable income.
And time.
Married, children, that's just the way it is. And, you know, hey, it's a fair exchange. Children are worth far more than any amount of money you spend on them.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I had kids, but like for me to go to Israel is a lot easier because A, I do have disposable income. B, I don't have to worry about my kids and stuff. Wow, we have Mo.
Good morning.
You heard us talking about you, huh?
No, I just saw that you had posted on Twitter, and I was like, I gotta get in on this thing.
We were just talking about you.
Oh wow.
We're talking about the Israel trip, and everyone's agreed that you have to make all the decisions because we can't make any decisions.
After Israel, the Puerto Rico trip.
That would be a first time for both. Well, actually, I did go to Puerto Rico as a baby, but first
You've
time.
never been to Puerto Rico?
As a baby.
You've never been to Israel? What kind of a pastor are you?
I made the sacrifice and sent my wife to prepare a place for me.
Like Jesus?
Something like that. But I'm down to take decisions. I have a feeling it's more so I can take responsibility for anything that goes wrong.
Pretty much, yeah. So people are trying to decide if Jordan Peterson wants to come, whether we'll allow him to come or not. I say we should.
Only if he rides it on a donkey. Well, we need to rent donkeys for all the VIPs.
I've never ridden a donkey, so there'll be a lot of firsts for me.
But seriously,
I've ridden donkeys to church.
The first question is how large are we thinking it might be, and how large it. So Chezi's hoping for 2 tour buses. I think we're going to get at least 100 people.
I think you need dates, you need a deposit and sign up form, and then you'll get probably some real interest. You need to have some skin in the game. People need to put some money into it.
That's what I was saying is you need a deposit. So the idea was a Shabbaton, which is basically just a retreat it usually starts like Friday afternoon and goes deep into the night on Saturday night. So like you want a hotel night, until Sunday morning. So it's going to be 2 nights, 2 nights hotel, and everybody has to be within walking distance because no cars. And so that would be on February 24th, 2024, which seems to work out beautifully. I believe it's a Saturday, and it's also Purim Katan, which is a minor Jewish holiday. And so I was thinking, okay, that's the event, and we can ask how many people want to come, and it's $100 deposit. It's probably hopefully we're going to subsidize it, but like hopefully we're not charging people more than $200 per person for the Shabbaton. But that's going to require people donating and sponsoring to bring the price down. And then that will be the main event, and then you have a few days of touring before and after that are optional but available. And yeah, that seems like a workable thing. Paul has something to say. Nope.
I was just going to leave a comment that Mark isn't coming. I think Mark won't come because he can't drive, so can't drive there. I don't know why he doesn't want to come.
Yeah, so February 24th is a Saturday. February 24th, 2024 is a Saturday, and when I looked on a Jewish calendar, it was Purim Katan as well, which is just beautiful synchronicity in my opinion.
If Jordan wants to come, Jordan can come. We just have to keep it quiet. And after, the first day it'll be all, and then after a little bit, people get used to him and it'll just settle down.
I would be really surprised if he does decide to come, but yeah, I mean, and we can keep it quiet. Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get distracted by these chats.
Yes. I'm just checking the thing.
But you can also make breakfast during the chat.
I don't eat breakfast.
Yeah, so the 23rd is Purim Katan, the 24th is Shushan Purim Katan. It's beautiful, I think. And frankly, if we are going to officially found the foundation on that day, it might be a beautiful way to do it.
What is the thought on the nature of the event? Like,
It's well, so Paul, hopefully Pajot, Zevi, who has the Seekers of Unity channel, and I don't know, like the theme would probably be something like consciousness and conscience.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Paul, so you probably haven't heard of Zevi. Zevi's been on Vervaeke's channel several times. He has his channel's about I think about 10,000 subscribers, and he's a good friend of Chazi's, and he lives in Jerusalem.
Sounds awesome.
More heretics, Mo. We're just women and heretics.
Apparently, heretics are being drawn to me these days.
Pretty soon you'll be a gateway drug for their heresies, right, Jonathan, who lives in Grand Rapids?
That's right. Sorry, Paul. Conduit of heresy.
So Nechama is telling us that we have to celebrate her birthday at the Shabbaton as well. We'll make sure we do that. Yeah.
I'm still lost in reading all these chats.
And this is with a minute slowdown.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier just to sit in the chat and be the peanut gallery. The other day, I think, Jacob, you had like 2 people shy of having like a full Brady Bunch
right
situation going on.
That was one of the best Just Chattings we've ever had. It was actually really really good, and lots of people liked it. It was a great conversation.
Yeah. OG group though, huh? I was not familiar with some of those folks, but
yeah, it was the OG group, and yeah, it was right after I had introduced Mo to some of the OG group, and there's exciting things happening, Mo. Get on it. Come on, let's get this going.
I'm working on it. I had a long conversation with Chad yesterday. Had a conversation with CW over the weekend. I have a whole list of people that I'm still planning to meet up with this week to chat, get thoughts, things like that.
There's the man himself.
I love the steering wheel disguise. Awesome.
Good
What do
morning.
you have to say about all this stuff, Chad?
Well, I think it's exciting, and I kind of feel like Wilson right now from Tool Time, which is great.
Howdy, neighbor.
Everybody should have their own Wilson, by the way. I think that I really think that if you're gonna do it, like you should have not only the events, but like have a nice video series leading up to it, and something that highlights our similarities rather than our differences, because the differences are easy to see. But that's why I like the idea of like the convergence of meaning and values in our where the convergence of Western and Eastern culture and how they meet. I think that would be a fun series, and I think it would be abundant in content and opinion from all of the different people, like on a panel, like let's say Vanderclave, Vervaeke, what's his face, Pajot, and maybe Mo here, and maybe, well, I don't know if I'd put you on there, Jacob, because you might just kick over all the flags. But like
No, Zevi will do great as the Jewish heretic.
yeah. So yeah, get some of those guys in. Maybe even do a callback from Richard from what's that Thunder Bay. I think it'd be interesting to get a callback from that guy anyways and see what he's been thinking about since the Thunder Bay event. But really hype up the event by using the tools of the network, and like all of that stuff is good stuff. So lots of dead space here, guys.
Any interest in like incorporating some kind of music or arts into the event?
I was thinking about that because Hezi the other day was talking about where he met his wife was at a concert. People in his town, they have like music scene there where it's people of all different kinds of genres, but they're actually performing folk Jewish music, and I think that'd be kind of interesting thing to tap into.
It's traditional when Sabbath ends for the Saturday night thing to have music, and usually it goes deep into the night. Actually, I think that's what was going on when it talks. I think in Acts it talks about the staying up until Sunday morning. Like that's a very traditional thing within Judaism, and there's usually music.
Cool.
What is it? All traditional Jewish music?
I mean, it doesn't have to be. The thing with Motzei Shabbat after the Sabbath is that's when you can do whatever you want. If we're in Jerusalem, actually, like there are street performers on Ben Yehuda that in Jerusalem, often on Saturday nights. In Tel Aviv, that's disco night. Like, so yeah, Saturday night music. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be involved in anything that has mixed dancing, Chazi. But other than that, I'm fine with anything musical.
Maybe some
When in Rome.
Some salsa music.
Okay, so yeah, the only thing is in Jerusalem, like an event where men and women dance together is controversial.
Okay.
More controversial than when men and men dance together?
Yes, separate. You have to understand the Hasidic community is very, very sex segregated. It's men do their thing, women do their thing. Very few things involve both at the same time.
So we could probably do a hip hop set and have some men breakdancing and women breakdancing separately.
Rap battles.
You realize a lot of the, like, if you go to a Orthodox Jewish wedding, there will be a curtain down the center, and men and women do not even see each other.
What about a stand-up comedian?
Sounds beautiful to me. Yeah, we'll figure this stuff out. We'll figure this stuff out.
I do wonder, just in the sense of like the actual event, some kind of if there would be any potential like art to be displayed. You know what the Peterson's got this Exodus series, and they got that weird thing in the background. Like, what visual stimulation would you want there to be present? If that makes sense.
Okay, so this is the thing with the Shabbaton. Like, I think when you experience it, you'll see how involved and beautiful it is. Most of it is going to be, most of it usually is people around a table, because so no electronics, no instruments, no, like, so it's very, very prescribed, but that actually makes for like a beautiful environment where you know what, there's a guy who on YouTube did a series, he's a documentary person, Peter Santinelli, and he did a series on the Hasidic community. I highly recommend it to see what the Sabbath is like in a Hasidic, in an actual observant Jewish environment. It's really beautiful. And Fawad, you're more than welcome to join us for our Israeli trip. That will be really interesting. Fawad lives in Brazil, and he is from Pakistani background. And
You know, it might be worthwhile looking into hiring a documentary film crew and documenting the whole event.
I'm guessing Zevi's going to do that, because Zevi has his entire setup there, and yeah, but filming on the Sabbath is another kind of no-no.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Find somebody who can do that. Maybe someone who's willing to work with.
Yeah, I mean,
I wish I had the tools for that. That'd be really great. So then you follow basically somebody, you'd follow the story from whether it's in California or Canada. So it'd be really expensive. So we have an agency now who's willing to kick out a bunch of money. So like, let's see.
Who said anybody's kicking out a bunch of money? Although Chesed, that, like, this is weird stuff, because like I've never even considered having a Shabbaton where there are invited Gentiles and how that works.
Well, I just want to drop in, smoke a cig, and say hello. Good to see you guys. Great. Thanks for chatting with me last night, Mr. Mo.
Oh, you're welcome.
And Paul, what are you eating? Is it green eggs and ham?
Paul, you mean me?
They're just fried eggs and ham.
Oh, perfect. Nice.
So
All right.
sorry.
Yeah, and I was having a boiled egg.
All right.
Wow, we have Luke.
Oh,
Fawad,
look at this
you have
guy.
a channel? What's your channel, Fawad?
God, Luke is gorgeous. Look at him. Look at that chest. Good.
Stop
God.
it. Stop it.
All right. Bye.
Chad! What are you guys talking about before I commandeer this unit for my own purposes?
We were
Israel.
talking about the Israel trip.
Oh. What percentage of confidence do you have that this is going to happen?
Luke, you'll have to bring your
95.
passport to that one, Luke.
To Israel?
Yeah, you have to
You
bring
need
your
a passport?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hold on, you live in Minnesota and you didn't know you needed a passport for Canada?
Well, I thought that I was confused because I thought that I had there's a difference. I learned there's a difference between enhanced ID and what do they call the other ID? Essentially, there's an ID that's made specifically for border states where they don't need a passport, where you can go into Canada. And I thought that's what I had being in Minnesota, but I didn't. I just had an enhanced ID, and I'm not a detailed person, and so I blew it. You know?
Wow.
It made for a lot of fun drama on the trip. We got to sit at the we got to sit at the border station for a little while. We got roughed up by a Canadian who was not very polite.
So did they let Luke in? Like, what happened?
Luke, we were able to get in and out of Canada, in and out of the United States. It was all fine, but it was quite funny because the other guy with us didn't have a passport, and we knew that. So we're going in, and then we're getting back, trying to get back to the States, and Luke's like, "Well, I just left my passport at home." It's like, oh, it was all good. It's these kinds of things make trips fun. It was a great trip. I so appreciate Luke and his friend bringing us both ways. That was so much fun.
Gents, what a great man that guy is.
I didn't want to name him because I don't want to name people on the channel if they want to be named.
He's cool with it. He's fine with it. I'll make the executive decision.
Minnesotans have dual citizenship, I thought.
Not quite.
So you're coming with your family to the Israel trip, Luke?
Oh man, I would love to. That's more convincing of my wife, because as you know, Jacob, my wife doesn't like any of you people. So she doesn't even like me talking about this stuff. So
That's been a whole thing right from the start of the Jordan Peterson thing is, that husbands having to sort of figure out how to deal with their wives in this little corner because they're like, what's with all these strange people you're talking with?
So when I did my little trip to Arkansas, I told my mom I'm gonna meet up with a bunch of people I met on the internet, and she asked me. She literally asked this question: "What if they kill you?"
That's such a boomer thing to ask.
I think my wife's okay with you guys killing me. She just doesn't want to listen to these conversations. I'll talk to her about this stuff and she'll like look at me kind of blank-eyed for a while, and then after like a few minutes she's like, okay, I'm done. I'm maxed out.
I've been making videos for over 5 years, and just yesterday my wife says to me, so what do you talk about on these videos?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
didn't quite know how to answer her.
How do I sum up 5 years of video making?
What do you say?
Oh, religion and church and stuff. My children far earlier figured out a line to make sure that their friends never watched my videos. Your father makes YouTube videos? It's just 2 hours of religion and philosophy. You wouldn't like it.
My parents recently found out about my YouTube channel. My dad listens to some of my discussion with Father Stephen, and he says to me, so my father is convinced religion is the bane of all logic and modernity and making sense and being a good person.
Wow.
And so he's like, why are you trying to reason with people? There's no reasoning with religious people.
Has your father met you?
My father has met me, and he thinks I'm crazy for thinking that first of all, he doesn't think that my religiosity is any way logical or reasonable. And second, he thinks I'm crazy for thinking that religion has any logic or rhyme or reason to it.
Have you ever been allowed to kind of have some time talking to him about it, or he just doesn't engage?
Oh, he engages. It's the most infuriating thing in the world.
So you're saying Your father's like you?
My father and I are very, very, very similar. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting to get older and see how much you resemble your parents, and you're this strange blend.
We do things because they are familiar.
What?
Familiar.
Oh,
But familiar. They are more like family. Like
You do really good dad jokes, Jacob.
You mean I'm joking about my dad? That's what
There
you
you
mean?
go.
He's a psychologist, Jacob. Is that true?
No, that's Hezi's dad. My father's an engineer.
Oh, an engineer.
no way.
Yeah.
What kind of engineer?
Electrical, but he spent the last 20 years teaching. So when he came to the United States, he got a job, 30 years teaching. So, yeah. He went to Technion in Haifa. It's considered the MIT of the Middle East.
Come again?
The name of it is Technion. It's considered the MIT of the Middle East.
Yeah, I was making a joke.
Okay, I don't get it.
I don't speak Hebrew. Paul, can I tell you what annoyed me so far in the first half of your video I was watching?
You mean you haven't left 50 comments?
No, I did. I don't know if you see them all. I left some comments.
I always see your comments, Luke.
Okay.
You're a very good commenter. You leave the timestamps. That's excellent commenting. You don't make them too long, unlike someone else who I won't name right now. But
Navigating patterns.
he gives me grief for making such long videos, but his comments are almost worthy of a video.
I mean, I don't know. There's something about I think it's just people who like air quote work from their computer, who have a ton of extra time that can type comments like that. Because whatever, working with your hands or multitasking or doing extra things, I don't have time to sit down and write like half a novel. Are you kidding me? I don't know how they do either if they're working.
What annoyed you about my video this time, Luke?
So, in particular, and I've said this, the main one is that when you talk about, you were talking about Tim Keller and believing in the resurrection, and I think at 24:35, you're talking about that you will not go to church and you will not do all these things unless you believe in the resurrection. But then on one hand, I'm just like, you listen to Vervaeke talk about the idolatry of propositional knowledge and that all knowledge is participatory. You hear Peugeot talk about how being initiated is necessary to knowing things the way that you ought to know. And then you talk about believing in the resurrection in a propositional, historical, critical way. And I'm like, you're Sam Harris eye patching it. What are you doing? What does it mean to believe something? Like, this is what the whole Jordan Peterson thing is about.
I think, well, let me do it this way. Generally speaking, Christians who believe in the resurrection probably go to church in greater numbers than Christians who don't.
But again, what do you
And
mean?
I think there's a
Abstract
correlation
propositionally?
for that.
But that's my point. You're smuggling in what it means to believe in the resurrection.
That's a complicated question to answer. The short answer is yes, but there's a lot more to say about it.
I aspire one day to have my followers stalk me and find me in somebody else's live stream and then read me the riot act about a video I made. That's awesome.
I love it. I love it.
I'm not stalking him. I just popped in because I saw Jacob was live.
No, I'm joking. I didn't mean you.
Luke, you can stalk me all you want.
I
put an end to it.
I haven't watched today's video, but my response to yesterday's video was, I think of all the silly people who think that they're strong enough to resist God, and I laugh at them. Like, God's gonna win. You have no choice but to be saved.
Yeah, it's like Love Wins. It's a good title.
There is a link to my Discord below in the description. If that's not working, let me know. Grizz says, I stopped into a Nazarene church once and they were selling bodily resurrection real hard.
Right, but that's modernist. To say like you must believe in the historical critical bodily resurrection. Like that's
Look,
like materialism smuggled
You're-
with layered
you're-
on Gnosticism.
No. See, this is the thing. You and a lot of the supposed pre-moderns take this being anti-propositional way too far. Like there is such thing as propositional truth, and propositional truths are important.
I didn't say they weren't.
Well, if you're a Christian, then the resurrection of Jesus may be, in fact, the most important propositional truth.
Sure, but am I saying I didn't ever once say propositional truth didn't matter? I said that we flatly and elevating propositional to the most important say if you believe in the resurrection, it's tied to your intellectual assent to propositions and then your self-identity with those ideas, which is what Vervaeke and Peugeot and me for years have been saying isn't what belief is. Most fundamentally.
No clue what you just said.
Okay, but, and I understand your point. But if you in fact are a cultural modernist, then that particular propositional belief will be likely quite essential to the entire package, because we are in fact embedded within cultures, and to whatever degree you have a critique about a specific culture, the elements within that culture will have to line up. And so I don't, even though I've certainly got plenty of my critiques about receding modernity, there's parts of modernity that are so deep inside of me, they will not be laid to rest until the day I die. And there are elements of modernity that are vitally important and an achievement that ought to be kept. I also find it really difficult to read the New Testament and sort of mythologize away the post-resurrection sightings. I mean, when Thomas basically says, unless I can put my fingers in the wounds and my hand in his side, you won't have me believing this.
Yeah.
And even if modernity overemphasizes the propositional, as Jacob just says, it doesn't go away. It's always been there. So that's my comment.
No, I'm not saying that it does. I'm not saying propositions don't matter. I'm not an anti-propositionalist. That's the caricature that always happens whenever I make this point. And what I'm saying is that self-identity and self-identityism and the transgender movement and everything else is about your identity to abstractions and propositions and ideas. And I've always said from the beginning, this started in the church. And until we diagnose the problem, like whatever, where you're treating symptoms.
So Yosef wants to point out that today is Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan's yahrzeit, and that actually means something to me because his books are incredible and I highly recommend them to everyone.
Can you give us a little bit more about who this person is and what he writes about?
Yes. So Rabbi Kaplan, he grew up in a secular home, and he was orphaned, I believe, at the age of 14. And so he decided to go to synagogue to say Kaddish for his mother. And there he became friends with a young chassid, and he started learning Hebrew. And by age of 24, he had received the Dayanut from the Mir Yeshiva, which is a level of rabbinic ordination vast majority of people never achieve. And he went and got a master's degree in physics after that. And he spent many, many years translating sometimes obscure texts that sometimes obscure Kabbalistic texts to English, which made those books, for example, The Way of God is one of the books that he translated, which was almost unknown before he did so, and has become a cornerstone of basically almost every yeshiva in the world now, because of the popularity it gained through his translations to English. He translated many things to English, and all of those books have become very influential in Orthodox Judaism. And he was also involved in a youth group, NCSY, for which he wrote many basic tracts about fundamental beliefs of Judaism, and those tracts still get published today. So he died 40 years ago, and he died very young. He actually was only, I think, around 50 years old when he died. And he's been incredibly influential in Orthodox Judaism, both in modern Orthodoxy and in the ultra-Orthodox community. And yeah, he was a brilliant person who died way too young.
Thank you, Jacob.
My pleasure. I'm going to sit here quietly until somebody says something, especially Mo.
All right, I got to say something. Well, listening to Paul and Luke go back and forth, it reminded me of or it made me think of linguistic problems and how we use language. For example, terms white and black. I kind of hate those terms as descriptors for people, because obviously the way that we use the terms white and black for people are indicative of things that aren't really true, materialistically speaking. But I still use those words in certain contexts to communicate certain things.
Yep.
So as it would be true of things like belief, if every time I use the word belief, I said, I believe this, I was trying to indicate all the different forms of belief, I would give myself a headache trying to figure out when it's appropriate to use that word. So sometimes I do use it to mean propositional belief. Sometimes I use it to mean other things. And I'm not sure, when Paul was using the word, because I haven't watched the video in the context, were you making a statement where you're just trying to refer merely to propositional belief? Because I do think that a lot of people that go to church would propositionally say that, hey, this is an item that I believe in that way, even though they may not believe it in many of the other ways, or may not even be thinking on that level.
Well, propositional isn't in the Bible either.
Depending on your translation.
I don't think you'll find the word propositional in the Bible.
Wait till my translation comes out.
Well, and it's, the problem that every person has within a cultural framework is you have to engage the world with the tools you have available.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we rightly, and in the video I did this often, if while during the section of the video where I'm talking about where I'm commenting on Peterson's address in Israel, I keep flashing Greg Enriquez's little diagram about the table, because Luke is right. That key to this little corner of the internet is that our ability to engage with a table is far more complex than something that's, say, under Scottish common sense realism, where sort of a table is a table. So, I just read Nate Heil's comment that basically says, all of this stuff boils down to Christology. And there's a lot of truth in what Nate says there, because someone's Christology is sort of a nice little shorthand into some of the epistemic issues in the relationship. For example, I was thinking quite a bit the other day about Jacob and Sam and these darn Unitarians. And, so much of this just has to do with this border of, what's the relationship, I knew that Luke and Nate were going to be all over Raj, because in some ways over there on the Hindu side, this division between creator and creation is quite a bit more permeable. Whereas on the Sam Jacob side, the creator-creation distinction, I think, is really harder. And that's why talking about Jesus as God is just sort of like, well, of course not. Of course not.
See, this is the thing. I think you completely don't get it. The problem is that in Hebrew, human beings are called God all the time in the Bible.
Right.
And
but there's God, and then there's God.
Right. And so if you're talking about Jesus as God in the way that human beings are called God all the time in the Hebrew Bible, which Christians don't like,
I
blows their
understand
minds.
what you're saying right now, Jacob. I understand what you're saying right now.
Okay. So it's not a problem of calling Jesus God. It's a problem of the way you call Jesus God.
Exactly. So, and this is what I say, we all have to use the tools around us to talk about these things. And part of the difficulty is that not only even if we're coming to this conversation, as all of us now, living within the relatively same cultural frame, even that gets difficult. So anyway, I've got to go to church. So because I've got to sweep up. We had somebody came through Sunday night or early Monday morning and decided they were going to break into all the other classrooms at church. So I've got glass to clean up.
I'm guessing John is picking you up at the airport. I could do it.
John is picking me up at the airport. Yeah.
Okay.
So I fly into Ontario about 2.
I'm going to be driving past it to get. I'm going to be at Cross Points too, because that's where I'm talking to Raj.
Well, you can. Who are you talking? Oh, Raj is going to be my Raj.
No,
is going to be at Cross Point.
I am driving. I am going to use the connection at Cross Point to have my conversation, so I don't have to drive 2 hours after I have my conversation.
Well, because Vendonk was thinking that you were going to somehow get me involved with this thing at 3:30, and I said I'm going to be talking to Don Porter then.
No, it's just me talking to Raj. It's just I couldn't have my conversation here and then drive and make it to the estuary.
So text John, and if John wants you to pick me up at the airport, that's fine. I'll ride with. I don't care who gives me a ride. So you can fight it over. You can fight it out with John.
Okay. See you later today.
I'm also going to piece the scene. Happy Tuesday.
So Mo, tell us what you intend to do with this little corner of the internet.
So some of it has already started a little bit. I mean, like, we had that call Saturday night with the whole book thing. And so I think that's a big aspect of what we're trying to do is some people are doing a project. They need help and assistance on the next level. And sometimes it's just a matter of, I don't know anything about this. Can you connect me with somebody who does?
Yeah.
And so those are all the things where I'm spending a lot of thought time and trying to figure out is kind of the logistics piece. We've gone back and forth about the incorporation. What exactly is the organization going to be and things like that. had a little bit of a talk with both CW and Chad about like the idea of membership,
Mhm.
what that could look like. And so when it comes to that stuff, I'm trying to think about it, but not move too quickly into the decision-making process, because I want to get other people's opinions.
Okay, I have to say, membership in the corporation should and would be completely different from just membership, as in having, Randos United have some sort of membership structure where people could, it. There can be, and I think needs to be separate memberships.
Yes.
Membership in the corporation itself is going to be, because of the capacity to vote, is going to be much more tightly regulated.
Yes,
than,
exactly. And so
Yeah.
figuring out what the requirements would be, that
well, the
would,
statement of faith is going to be a big part of that.
no, the statement of faith, potentially buy-in, if
Yeah.
there's fees and whatnot. So a lot of that stuff, I don't want to enter into it lightly. So
Yeah.
we're working through a lot of that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I personally, my idea was, once you have the board of directors together, they can hammer out, okay, this is a statement of faith we can all agree to. This is a bylaws we can all agree to. This is an articles of incorporation we can all agree to. Because ultimately, what's going to happen is, despite how many people are interested, when it comes to actually hammering out a statement of faith and everybody signing on to it, you're going to get a lot of people who are like, no.
Yes, some people asking, what is a statement of faith?
What is a statement of faith, Mo? So the statement of faith is going to be those points which we are going to, which are basically going to, everybody who wants to be a member of the association or foundation is going to have to say, yes, I believe this, in order to become a member.
Yeah, and the I think one of the tricky things that some people are finding it hard to differentiate is that being a part of the organization and being somebody who benefits from the organization are very different things.
Very different things. Yeah, that's the thing. And that's part of what I think. Okay, so are we going to be naming one of the channels Randos United? Have you made that decision?
I have not. I still have to talk to some of the people that you've told me I should talk to.
Yeah. So let's hypothetically say that the Just Chatting 24/7 channel is going to be called Randos United. Hypothetically, we can have a membership organization around that is its own thing and doesn't have to be in any real way related to memberships in the foundation. And that's what I wanted to kind of say is, I don't want people to think, oh, if I'm not a member of the foundation, then I can't be a member of any of the projects that the foundation is working with. And that's just plain wrong.
Yeah. It's kind of like what I try to tell people is that I have a church. You don't have to go to my church or be a member of my church to interact with me or ask me church questions. Or if you were in need, my church can help you without you needing to be a member of the church. They're just very different things.
Yeah. So Grizz says, my beliefs change. Signing a paper doesn't cast them in stone. That's true. And what we would expect is, if your beliefs do change to the point where you would no longer be willing to sign that statement of faith, then you probably should be resigning. Nahama says, I assume only the board members would be signing this statement, not people using the channels or utilizing the foundation in any way. So the board members would be members, and I think all members would be agreeing to the statement of faith, but that is completely different from people using or utilizing the foundation. It's the foundation is going to be there for the benefit of lots and lots of people who many of them will likely not agree with anything we have to say. So that's very different.
Yeah, and I think that's an important, and that's really tough for people to grasp. It seems,
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you can believe whatever you want to believe, and if it's a good idea, we'll want to help.
Yeah. So Teo, again, so as a non-member, you can participate in the projects. The foundation itself is going to have a membership who will be voting on the board of directors and everything, and that's why you need a statement of faith for the actual organization itself. But you can participate in the projects as a non-member. You can, in fact, vast majority of people who are going to participate are not going to be members. Welcome, Sam.
Hello.
You know Mo.
We've met.
Sam and I aren't on good terms lately.
I'm glad to hear this, even though I keep on telling Sam he should have you on on his channel.
Wait, Grim, you're waiting for an email response from me? I gave you my more reliable email.
Why aren't you guys just DMing on Discord like
I
normal
don't know.
people?
Does he? I've never interacted with Grim Grizz on Discord. I don't know. We're trying to email like normal people.
Emailing you is difficult, Sam.
Well, no, it isn't. Not if you have my regular civilian email, which I gave him, but then didn't reply when I used it. That's not true. I don't know. Did you reply all? I mean, because anyway, I'll sort this out. We'll be in touch.
Gotta love
So
technology.
Sam, are you coming on the Israel trip?
Which Israel trip?
This low corner Israel trip?
Probably
February
not.
2024.
February 2024. So a year from now.
Yes.
Who's leading it?
Chazi. Well, I mean, it's really.
I'm leading it. I'm the
Mo
leader.
Mo is leading
Mo
it.
is
But
the leader.
Chazi lives in
Moses is
Jerusalem.
leading us to the promised land.
Yes.
There
Although,
you go.
doesn't he die before he gets there?
Hey, take it easy. Take it easy.
We need a Joshua with us just in case.
Just in case. Can it be a Josue? I think I can find a Josue.
Josue. It's so funny. Every time I see Mises, I just think Maishi. You're gonna end up being called Maishi.
That's where it comes from. I'm
Yeah.
used to being called that, actually.
Maishi, yeah. Yeah, so
Or a Jesus. I mean, a Jesus would count too. People forget Jesus' name just is Joshua.
I do forget that, yes.
Yeah.
I do as well. So what's up, Sam?
I don't know.
Have you
not
been
much.
listening to any of the stuff we've been talking about?
No,
Oh, okay.
I just popped on.
You did. And Luke has been having conniptions about people believing things.
Okay. Sam and I know each other a very long time. I love Sam, and he agapes what I think into proper words that people can understand. And so I would
I've
like
been
to
given
conti-
the gift of interpretation. is what it means.
Right. So I would like to continue with Moises, what you were saying. I was just communicating this to a friend because I was frustrated. So I really love psychoanalysis. One of the big things about a good psychoanalyst is that they allow you to talk without interjecting a lot, because when you stop paying attention to what you're saying and you just speak freely, you start to say the things that you actually believe rather than the things that you think you believe. Because if you ask someone directly what they believe about something, they will give you what I like to call the Sunday school answer, or like what I like to call the egoic answer. It's what people think that they're supposed to believe, which isn't necessarily the thing that they actually believe, which is how they act in the world. So my what I'm positing is that when you start to sign statements of faith and people talk about what they believe related to how they self-identify, that is the majority of the time egoic, because most people don't have any idea what they actually believe.
But it filters out people with the wrong egoic.
Sure, but is that a good thing?
I don't know. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of statements of faith either, Luke. And
I
part
know.
of me is like, but you guys still say the Nicene Creed. What do you think that is? That's just a statement of faith too.
Well, and that's kind of what I was getting at is
It's
that
aspirational.
You cannot have a community without some boundaries.
Yeah, but I don't think the boundary should be about abstract propositions.
Well, I
yeah,
think-
you're just plain wrong.
well, this goes
That's
back
an
to what I was
assertion.
saying about the use of language is that it's one of those things where, because to a certain degree, I'm 100% on board and agree with a lot of what you're putting forth. But you have to figure out some way to begin to act. And so to a certain degree, it's about how absolute you are with your actions. I mean, Sam and I have talked about this, about whether or not I would give him communion. And
Sure.
a big reason for that is the way that I feel he's explained to me his view on what we would call the persons of the Trinity in a Trinitarian belief system. I've heard pastors preach that way of viewing the Trinity. And those pastors give communion and take communion as well. And so I don't think what he actually believes as he describes them to me as outside of what a lot of people who outside of Orthodoxy, in the way that a lot of people who are considered inside of Orthodoxy, I don't see a huge discrepancy there, if that makes sense. And so there are, it's hard because you want to hold to things, but you can't always hold to them in the certain absolutized sense of completely understanding them based on the propositions that they are stating, if that makes sense. So that is
No,
one-
totally. Because
And
so this is what I would say.
Nechama has a very important and good thing to say. I remember when Google removed "Do No Evil" from their thing, and that's important. And Luke, you're
Yeah.
propositionally asserting your belief in not asserting propositions.
Oh my God, here we go again. Of course, how else would I do it, Jacob?
Yeah.
Exactly. So stop.
I agree with Luke on this one. You can't.
Did you
trap him
listen?
in
That's
that
what
box.
Vervaeke said. He's like, there's a difference between speaking with propositions and speaking propositionally. There's a difference. And that difference is important. How else would I communicate it to you? Sign language?
Couldn't possibly communicate it so that
I think you
we
can
have
communicate
propositions
propositions
that
with
are
sign language.
important. What's the problem here? What's the problem with acknowledging that
Identitarianism.
propositions are- Yes, identity.
Identitarianism is the problem.
Identity is important, Luke.
I didn't say that. I said identitarianism is a problem.
How do you? Okay, explain to me what distinction you're making between having identities and identitarianism.
I don't think your identity is primarily rooted in your propositional abstractions.
Nobody said
That's
it was.
Gnosticism. That's what
Nobody said it
identitarianism
was.
is. That's what identitarianism
Okay,
is.
so you're talking about something that has no relation to anything we're doing here.
What do you think wokeism is, Jacob?
Ideology.
Based in what?
It's Luke.
Abstractions and
Luke,
self-identity.
Luke, you don't have what you're trying to say hammered out in a way that can logically be dealt with, and yet you.
What did
are
I just say?
constantly- I have no clue.
Sam, what did I just say?
I think that propositions are and statements of faith and stuff like that are of some use. They do something. And I think that one, through careful investigation and thinking, can think about what they actually believe and get better and better at articulating it. That doesn't
I
mean
agree with that.
everyone's very good at that.
How
But-
do you have a community with no shared beliefs?
I mean, I also feel like
I don't think you do. But again, that's smuggling what belief is.
I also feel like there's
You're
the
using all these words and they mean absolutely nothing.
That's not true. Luke does actually mean something. It just takes a while to get used to it. But I think that Unitarian Universalism is sort of always like in the back of my mind of why in the world did that go so wrong? And I think that part of it was due to the fact that the Unitarians overreacted to the idea of creeds and got rid of all of them because they viewed them as being abusive in the past, probably fairly.
Mhm.
And then there was no fence. And so then you don't have any ability to, kick out a pastor who stops believing in God, or, and then all of a sudden you're the Unitarian Universalist Church in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that's being burnt down with a Black Lives Matter sign, right? So I do feel like the no propositional thing has been tried and found wanting, and that's a data point in this discussion too.
Okay, quick pause though, Sam. Am I saying that we shouldn't speak with propositions? Am I
Well,
saying
no,
we shouldn't?
I'm not saying. I'm saying specifically trying to have a religious community that didn't have any propositional fences around membership and leadership, etc. So I'm going more than just saying they didn't have propositions, because of course they had propositions. They didn't have propositional membership fencing, and that is part of. I'm not saying that's the only reason, but that there is something that weird that happened because of that.
And there's two difficulties with propositional fences, as you refer to them. One is, precisely what Luke is talking about. How do you know? How do people even know what they actually believe? That's one aspect. The also is the linguistic aspect of it. Are we interpreting all the rules in this, or all the words in this, the same way? And so, that's the tricky part of coming up with a statement of faith, is trying to do something that is a filter, because you do want to filter some people out, but you're doing your best to try to filter in the best way, because you don't want to exclude. There are certain people you don't want to exclude, but will likely be excluded. That's kind of inevitable.
Who do you want to
Teo-
exclude and why?
That's actually what I'm trying to figure out right now.
So Teo says, are we building a religious community? First, I have to keep on going back to this idea that this foundation is going to be a religious foundation. That doesn't mean it's going to be the entirety of this community. This is not like fencing you out of the foundation does not fence you out of the community. That's primary.
That's an important distinction.
Second, if we don't have some sort of fencing, I'm not going to contribute to this foundation, and neither are a lot of other people, because I am contributing to things because I am in fact trying to manifest something in the world. And if that foundation is not manifesting at least some of the things I believe in, then I am not going to contribute to it.
Okay, what if the boundary is behavioral? And then one thing I want to add in is Jordan Peterson in his recent Rogan talk defined an ideology as a one-sided religion. What does that mean?
How do you have a boundary that's behavioral?
If someone
Somebody
is
kills somebody, they
schismatic,
can't be a member.
No. So how do you define that boundary?
Well, the non-jailed population is a population that is defined behaviorally.
Yes, but how do you define it? Like, go ahead and, Antonio's right. I prefer when people say what they mean and not just what they don't mean. Like, I'm sorry, Luke can't be a part of this conversation because he's not speaking.
That's not true. Or
Yes,
fair.
it is.
I don't think that's fair.
I don't hear what he's saying because I don't hear what he's saying.
I hear what he's saying.
part of it,
So explain.
part of
Sam,
it, Jacob, is that
what is he proposing?
Everyone is worrying too much. If Sherry thinks we're worrying too much, then we're definitely worrying too much.
I agree. And by everyone, I specifically mean Chad and Luke.
Well, and for me, as somebody who is a bit new to a lot of these people, to a certain degree, what that indicates for me is that they care about something. And I always want to be careful, especially when I'm meeting new people, not to crap on what they care about. Once I get to know them, I can crap all I want. By the way, Sam, earlier you said doo-doo, and I felt the need to point that out. And so it's one of those things where I do want to rest that at ease. This organization will not really have the power to exclude anybody from the things that they're already doing, regardless of what kind of statement of faith we have. It's just a matter of we want to create a statement of faith more so that people know, hey, do I really even want to be a member in this organization at all? And that's why I want to be careful in how specific I get with things like that, and also how ambiguous I get with that, because both can be dangerous.
Well, Sam had to go. And so to the point of, is Jacob the boss or not? No, Jacob's obviously not the boss. I get to speak just like everybody else in this community gets to speak and give my opinions. And the choices ultimately are going to be made by Mo and whatever board he puts together.
So have either of you guys seen Vervaeke's recent conversation with Bishop Maximus?
I've been meaning to, but I haven't had a chance yet.
I have not either.
I mean, what he is saying is essentially what I'm saying, and he's outlining the difference between the Christian West and the Christian East. And what he's essentially saying is the Christian East is and always has been primarily apophatic. It's fundamentally apophatic, whereas the West, the scholastic West, is fundamentally cataphatic, which is the difference between what Jacob wants from me right now. He wants me to be cataphatic. He wants me to say explicitly, masculinely, asserting what I want.
Yes.
I'm going apophatic. I'm going feminine. I don't know what that is. I don't know the best thing because
Okay,
I'm not
so
an
then
ideologue.
why are you speaking at all?
Because I know I don't want ideology and identitarianism and authoritarianism. And I think anyone who puts cataphatic first spiritually leads that way. Every time.
And I mean, what's the so you're being catophatic in your in saying no, you cannot do this.
It's the difference. Let me say it this way. It's the difference between positive and negative, right? I'm saying we ought not do this.
So you're just destroying
We ought not.
things. So the only thing
No.
you're doing here is destroying.
No, Jacob.
Yes, Luke.
Okay.
You're not actually helping build anything. You're just trying to tear things down.
So maybe I can, to a certain degree, I think I can see that, but also to a certain degree, I think it is something valuable. When somebody presents a problematic argument, I don't think it's not valuable. It's double negative. I think it is valuable to be able to poke holes in that argument, even if I don't know the better one. If that makes sense, it's like I don't know enough about this to say what I think is true, but I know that you're full of crap. Like I think that's a valuable thing to try to point out.
I completely agree with you, but the problem is that here that Luke is just so involved in his critical analysis that it just destroys everything and has no alternatives. Has nothing. I mean, if we continue with this of no, we must do nothing. Like,
I didn't say that, Jacob.
yeah, you did.
So when you're in a good faith conversation with someone and they're talking to you directly and they're saying that's not what I'm saying, and then you assert that is what they're saying, I don't think that's very helpful.
The problem is sometimes the person you're talking to is just plain wrong.
Of course, you can keep asserting that, Jacob.
Yes. And I may be, in fact, right about that. Have you,
You might
considered
be,
that
but you're-
you might be wrong?
Jacob, this is like a conversation with my mother. We could go back and forth all day. Have you considered you might be wrong? I mean, what good does this do?
Yes, I have considered that I might be wrong. It's important
And
to
you've
consider that.
just done it better, and you're right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, this is where the postmodernists are right. That just becomes I'm right. I'm on the exclusivist religion of the right side of history, power play, and I win.
You are asserting that you're right and you must win right now.
I'm saying in a negative way, a negative right way, that I don't want to go down this path, but I am not
So don't go
proposing
down this path. So don't go down this path. Who's forcing you to go down this path?
Luke,
This
what
is
is
the
the path?
difference between-
To clarify, Luke, what is the path that you don't want to go on as it comes to whatever we're trying to put together? Or is that what you're referring to right now?
I don't really know what this thing that Jacob is doing and what you're doing is going to turn into. I mean, I don't know. I don't think anybody does really. I think it's well intentioned for sure. Everything always is. But I'm against thought policing boundaries.
Who's thought policing?
You are when you make a statement of faith rooted in propositional assent and self-identity. You are systematically.
This is just as word salad, Luke.
Okay. I don't know how to say it better than that, and it's word salad. So,
well, I do have a question for you, Luke. So you're against the policing aspect, which to a certain degree, I don't have any issues with that as a statement. Could you plausibly, and I don't expect you to come up with this off the top of your head, but is it possible to create some kind of organization in a different way that maybe you can offer some suggestions off the top of your head?
well, I don't see. Well, and this is where one of my quotes that I love to go back to all the time is this quote from Paul Tillich, which I actually Googled about 10 years ago. I didn't even know Tillich said it. I just Googled this exact phrase because I think it's true. And I was just looking for something close. But it's all institutions are inherently demonic. And I think, I mean, obviously that's going to be, people aren't going to like that. A lot of people. But I think
all institutions are inherently demonic.
Yeah.
Do you realize that is a demonic thing to say?
How do you interpret that?
No is the answer.
How do you interpret that phrase of all institutions being demonic?
Well, so a lot of it would come down to my basic assumption that everything is relational. If you want to talk metaphysics and ontology and try to build from there, I think everything is relational. I think it's relationships all the way down. And I think what an institution is you're trying to take a general truth or a law and then systematize it to try to recreate it in the future. That's what an institution does, which is obviously well intended. I think the problem, though, is that institutions, Peugeot has said this, and what a system is 666. It's harvesting the fringe because a system does not allow for outliers. And with persons and relationships, you are always going to get outliers. Always.
Mm-hmm.
Because a person is an outlier. Every person is an exception to the rule. And so that's what I think it means that all institutions are inherently demonic, is because they exclude, by their nature, person.
So I have
while they think they're helping people.
I have a suggestion, Luke. How about you don't join this institution?
Well, but see, that's the thing. If you have a statement of faith, this is what I was saying to Jason Almondtree in a group chat we're in, I won't be able to. Like, this is why I had to leave the Protestant church I was in, because they had a statement of faith around eternal conscious torment explicitly, and I couldn't sign it. because I don't
But
believe
you
it's
did
true.
you did join the Eastern Orthodox Church, which has a statement of faith, right?
No,
It doesn't? You
no,
don't say the
Jacob,
Nicene Creed?
we do every time, but you know what? You don't say it until you're baptized.
Okay, so you joined it with a creed.
Yes, but I've had this exact conversation with my priest, Jacob,
Okay, and
and we have explicitly talked about how within Orthodoxy it is not unintentional and without purpose that a catechumen would never. There's the liturgy is set up into two parts. There's a dismissal of the catechumens,
right.
and you don't say the creed ever until after the dismissal of the catechumens. You don't start making creedal confessions until you're in.
Okay. And
That's important.
okay, so like I said, only the people who are going to be members of the foundation are going to be people who are signing the statement of faith. Not everyone. This
Yeah,
is
so
actually
you're
something we discussed very explicitly. Plenty of people are going to be involved who are not going to be part of the statement of faith.
right. But I'm just saying, as far as orthodoxy is, what you're doing is inverting it.
No, I'm not. You just don't understand what's going on.
But didn't you just say you sign the statement of faith and then you're in? That's the opposite of what I just said.
I don't know how many times I can explain this. There's going to be a broad membership, and then there's going to be a more limited membership.
Yeah.
The broad membership is going to be open to everyone, and the limited membership, if there's only one, there may be multiple, is going to have a statement of faith.
Yeah, but I'm saying in orthodoxy, that's not how it works. There's not a limited group
Well,
who
this
signs
also
something
is
and then get
not
in.
going to be a new church, Luke.
You are the one who brought up me joining the Orthodox Church as a proof to your point about signing statements of faith and
About the
confessional
fact
creedal allegiance.
That
You brought
there
that
is,
up.
yes, because creeds are important. Even you had to agree to a creed.
Did you listen to anything I just said? Not to join
Yes.
the Orthodox Church?
Not to interrupt this conversation that's going somewhere, definitely. But Chad asked if somebody will address this question about being part of two different organizations that have two different statements of faith. I guess it would depend on whether those statements of faith that are different are mutually exclusive or in opposition to one another. But you would have to kind of decide that for your own. I'm not going to be looking to try to figure out every organization where you've signed statements of faith and figuring that out. And for those who would want to be members and sign a statement of faith, I also probably won't be policing whether your signature is really sincere.
I don't know how you would.
Honestly, this whole conversation sounds like a lot of to do about nothing by people who are probably never going to want to be members of the foundation anyway. And it's like, why are we even bothering? I don't know. Like,
Well, because don't you think it's healthy though? I mean, when you talked to me on the phone the other day, you
yes.
said explicitly that it's healthy to have boards and groups that represent the community, and it's important to not have a one-sided religion, like Jordan Peterson was saying, to incorporate the fringe, people that don't agree with everything else. But what a statement of faith does, if you say this is a statement of faith, everybody has to sign it. Everybody who's in
Luke,
is in.
No. See, this is the thing. You're not listening.
Jacob, I know what you're going to say right now.
Talking about.
You're saying you have two groups of people,
You know what,
and people
Luke?
can participate, but at different levels.
Yes.
I know what you're going to say,
So
Jacob. It's not like I'm not listening.
Yes, you are not listening.
Okay.
And yes, Sherry is right. I agree, Jacob. People need to wait and see. There are plenty of people, frankly, there are things that just need to happen, and then certain people will decide they don't like it. And that's fine, because nobody's forcing anything on anyone.
This isn't
This
even
is all
about
voluntary.
Yes, and that's great. This isn't about your your thing and whether or not it's going to be good or bad. I'm trying to make an intellectual philosophical point about self-identity and how these things get created. That like no matter what their intentions are, they turn up inverting and destroying themselves. Like
So
American
you-
churches, like universities,
right.
like
so
whatever.
you have an ideological, so you are possessed by an ideology that hates all creation. I get it.
So Jacob, have I insulted you or your character or your ideas during this or your institution that you're trying to build?
Yes. You said it's demonic.
I said all institutions are inherently demonic.
So what I am doing is demonic. That's what you said.
But I'm not
But you
assaulting your
didn't
character.
articulate it. I realize you didn't mean to. But what you are actually doing, what you are actually doing is, in fact, getting in, yes, you are insulting what is going on. You called it demonic, Luke, even if you didn't notice. And that happens a lot because you're
Jacob,
not actually thinking about the things that you do and say,
Okay.
which is a problem.
Well,
Now, Sherry
Yeah, I
also
don't know.
says that she can't imagine a Jew and a Christian signing the same statement of faith.
I completely disagree. I think
It would really
yeah, I
depend
think it's
on
gonna
what's
be
included
easy.
in the statement.
Yeah.
But she's not the only one that has expressed that to me. I've had other people express that as well.
My hope is this will be something that Muslims and Sikhs and Hindus and certainly Buddhists, I would, if it's not something that Buddhists, Muslims, Jews and Christians and Sikhs and Baha'is can all sign on to, I think it would not be doing what this needs to do. So, and no, not the Freemasons. We're trying very hard to not be the Freemasons, and that's something we've deliberately been thinking about. But it definitely has to be broader than just Christian.
And the other aspect of it is because I know a lot of people will question kind of Jacob's involvement and whatnot. To a certain degree, part of the reason that Jacob has asked me to take up this mantle is so that at some point I can exclude Jacob if necessary. And I am perfectly willing to do that at some point if I see fit. Right now, I have a lot of questions that Jacob assists me with. But that's a big part of it.
I'm here to help, and I have my opinions, but this is not my show. If I wanted it to be my show, well, it's my channel. I could very well make this just the Jacob show. I'm working very hard for it not to be just the Jacob show, and that's my decision. I mean, if I wanted to, I could kick you all off my channel right now.
Don't do that. Don't kick me off. I just got on.
You're like one of my favorite people, Sherry. So why? How would
Listen,
I kick you off?
I have to go feed my sheep. Literally feed my sheep. But I just wanted to say that I wanted to clarify why I said I can't imagine a Jew and a Christian signing the same statement of faith. To me, that is very refreshing. Okay. That a Jew and a Christian are going to sign the same statement of faith. And I'm really excited to see what that is. And so I just wanted to make sure that the context in which I said that was understood properly. And I'm waiting and I'm watching.
We love you, Sherry.
Like you do.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I have to get back to some work.
Yeah, it's 9:00 here. I have to go do stuff. To be continued. And Mo is having a Let's Chat on Friday way too early, I probably will not be up. But and there will be more chats and stuff in the slow corner later. So
Thanks for letting
bye,
me on and
everybody.
spewing my heresy, Jacob.
You're one of my favorite heretics.